Hello, I'm Andy Burke, and this is the Scottish Football Podcast. All the news, views and analysis you need on Tuesday the 20th of January. And today we're focusing on the sides battling the drop from the Premiership.
It's probably one of the most scrutinised jobs in the world, being a football manager.
Livingston without a win for 164 days, currently sit bottom of the league. And David Martindale's side face familiar opponents tonight.
The next 3 or 4 games are vital for us. We'll have hopefully more players in by then as well. We've had a good reset. We know what we need to do. We need to cut out making silly mistakes. And we'll start turning that around.
St Mirren defeated Livy in the Cup, but do they have it in them to pull away from the relegation dogfight? And 11th place Kilmarnock have a fresh face in the dugout, but can they turn round their results?
See, to be honest, I don't really care about the Scottish Cup. We're out of it, and it's just another game that's passed us without winning a game. My now focus is bringing this group together and making sure we stay in this Premiership.
Stay with us to get the lowdown on where all 3 clubs sit now.
The Scottish Football Podcast from BBC Sports Scotland.
Right, delighted to be joined this morning by Div McDonald, Pine Bovril Supremo and St Mirren diehard. Morning, Div. How are you getting on?
Good morning, yeah, all good. Looking forward to the game tonight.
Callum Scott from the Kilmarnock podcast, Forever and Ever. Good morning, Callum.
Morning, Andy. Thanks very much for having me.
Great to have you. And Stuart Barrie, producer Stevie has described you in my script here as long-suffering Livingston supporter. That's a little bit harsh. I mean, you did get promoted last year. It's not all been doom and gloom in recent times.
Well, long-suffering is probably an underestimation of the trials Livingston.
Well, lads, we're going to get into all 3 of your clubs. But before we start, I want to get your thoughts. We'll start with you, Div, on the incredible scenes at the AFCON final. Something you might be familiar with if you follow the juniors game. It was dramatic, incredible, full of drama. Have you ever seen anything as crazy as that in Scottish football?
I would see it most weeks in Scottish football. No, I, to be fair, I didn't watch a lot of the tournament, and somebody had said to me, "If you watched the final, have you seen what's going on?" So I switched over, and I couldn't believe what I was watching. The closest I think I've seen to St Mirren played down in Ayr in 1992 or 1993, way back in the day. And we played Ayr and we had 3 men. A guy called Joe Timmins was the referee. He sent off 3 St Mirren players, including notorious hardman Paul Lambert. Chick Charlie did spit in someone's face, so he probably did deserve to go. And Barrie Levetti went as well. And after the game, I think we lost 2 or 3-0. And after the game, I don't know why, all the St Mirren fans went round to try and get into the main stand. I don't know why. I don't know what we were going to do if we got in. But the intention was definitely to lynch the referee. But the police held us back, the big bad Paisley boys. So that's as close as I've seen to absolute chaos. But yeah, we do see chaos in Scottish football every week. So nothing new there.
Yeah, it was pretty extraordinary, wasn't it? Right, let's get back to Scottish football. Plenty going on with all 3 of your clubs, gents. And Stuart, let's start with Livy. Where are Livy at the moment? Because they're obviously bottom of the table, long time without a win, but it seems to me that they seem to be right in a lot of games, but just can't get into that habit of getting over the line for a victory.
No, it's crazy. It's like Livy's season's been in Stranger Things upside down, where you play really well, good attacking football, and just can't win. It's just bonkers. We should be winning games. We just can't get over the line. We seem to switch off about the 88th minute when teams score against us, and that's teams like Hearts and Rangers who are at the top of the league. So we played well against everybody. But we just really, really can't get the win. I think the last time we won, the Edinburgh Fringe had just started, and that's Easter eggs in the shops.
Well, it's a good way of summing it up. I mean, Callum, when you look at Livingston, David Martindale's been there such a long time. You kind of know what you're going to get from them. They always are tough to beat, but just as Stuart says there, that ability to find a way to get 3 points is just eluding them at the moment.
Well, that's certainly the perception for the Kilmarnock support, because a lot of the time you're more likely to be a bit more self-deprecating towards your own club. So if you're asking every Kelly fan now, they think that Livingston will catch us, to be honest. I know there's no much in it, but will definitely come down to the two years in the bottom two spots. But I think that that Livy will more than likely be up for a fight more than Kilmarnock seem to be at this moment in time.
Yeah, it's a tough time, Callum, isn't it? Obviously, change of manager, you hope to get that bounce. But I've watched Kelly a few times this season, and they just look a bit short after the departure of some key guys in the summer. I was at the Hibs game recently, and I just thought this looks like a team that could be doing with some fresh blood and reinforcements. But from what Neil McCann's been saying in recent weeks, it's no guarantee that he's going to get that in this window.
That's exactly it. As a supporter, when the January window comes up and you see the shortcomings of the squad, I mean, how Stuart Kettlewell recruited this squad and thought it would be good enough to stay up is beyond belief, to be honest. I mean, we've got one winger in the building because Matty Kennedy's been a long-term injury, and that's Scott Tiffany, who's underperformed, to be honest. So we're completely lacking in width, and we all know that Neil McCann and Billy Dodds both like to play with wingers. So I'm hoping I'm living in hope that one or two of them can come in. I mean, we're on a horrendous run. We're just about to equal our record. I think it's 18 league games without a win, which goes back to 1981. And there's every chance that we'll break that record, which is something that no club wants to be proud of. We are winless run with that. So for me, it's really, really, really tough times being a Kilmarnock fan, but we're still hoping that we can get some new recruits in. And again, I want to make clear that at the moment, none of the support put any of that in Neil McCann's door. He's been in here less than 2 weeks. We took far too long to get the appointment done and dusted, particularly with a guy that was out of work. As a manager at that moment in time, and now we're really paying the consequences for it. And you mentioned the Hibs game there, when you went those 3-4 games over Christmas with picking up 1 point. It's just no good enough.
Well, Div, it's Callum saying there it's been a tough season, being a Kelly fan. I'd imagine it's been a bit of a roller coaster being a St Mirren fan this season.
Yeah, I mean, it always is, to be perfectly honest, but this season's been like, it's been so bizarre. Obviously we've had the unbelievable high of what was only 5 weeks ago. It seems like a longer time than that. That was unforgettable. We've paid a wee bit of a price for it. Obviously, we've got a little bit of a wee fixture pile up, and we've also lost a few players with injury. But I think at the moment we're kind of teetering on the brink. We'll go one way or the other. I think tonight will say a lot about where our season's going. If we get a win tonight, I'd be fairly confident we can push on and get back up the league. But another defeat on the road, and certainly nerves will start to jangle a wee bit. We were used to this. This is what our bread and butter was up until Stephen Robinson came into the club. We were always in battles like this. So there's no big problem at the moment. I think we all think we're good enough to get out of it. But having said that, you get into a tailspin in football quite easily, and losses become a habit. And hopefully that draw at the weekend at Livingston will be a turning point for us. But it's going to be hard. We've got some tough games before the split.
Yeah, sure. Obviously, Livy and St Mirren met at the weekend in the Cup, and the two teams probably looked like two teams that were just desperate for a win, and I suppose a lot of nerves came into it as well. Do you think that game affects the league game tonight in any way?
I think it was a battle of the average on Saturday, with two teams trying really, really hard not to make a mistake, and trying hard not to lose the game. So it ended up going to penalties, which would be nice if we could get them tonight in the league game. Maybe that might give us a chance of a long-awaited win. But I think Davy Martindale's playing a masterstroke, because we've signed a handful of new players, and only Scott Arfield really played on Saturday, and he had an impact. He got his goal and played well for most of the game. And if Davy can get the guy Alex Tamon, who's meant to be a great striker, then that will really help us. And we've just signed a left back last night, apparently for a 6-figure sum. So in Davy's terms, that's probably about $6,000. So we'll have to see how this guy will kick on. But we've got recruits. We just need to see what they can do now. We've got the guys in the building, and Davy knows his squad. So I'm hoping, and he knows the league, and he knows how to battle down at the basement. So I'm hoping we can get that. And I do feel it means more to us tonight. I know it sounds mad, but this is defining our season tonight. Whereas St Mirren can look back in a couple of months ago and enjoy that, but tonight, if we don't win, I think that's it.
Yeah, Callum, obviously watching on as a neutral this evening, but it's a massive game, Livy St Mirren, isn't it?
Huge, absolutely huge. When you see how close the table is, I think objectively, if you're looking at it, or if you're not a Kilmarnock fan, you're probably thinking a point, because it keeps St Mirren within so-called touching distance, and it prevents Livy for really breathing down our necks, even though we're there. But again, if you're asking me, again, Div will have a different view here. Again, you're more likely to be self-deprecating towards your own team, but I think that St Mirren have just got too much. I don't see them falling really back into unfortunately where me and Stuart are at this moment in time, and I think it's a straight dogfight between Kilmarnock and Livy. So on that, I'm actually hoping that St Mirren potentially do us a favour. But again, a lot of that's all down to if we can get players in the building, because as it stands now, the squad just isn't good enough, and we're destined for the bottom two places.
Yeah, I mean, Div, the January window, the signings that happen or may not happen could be pretty important in this whole situation. Callum saying earlier that Kelly obviously don't have a lot of money to throw around. Stephen Robinson's been pretty clear about St Mirren that he's working with a very, very small budget, and he's done wonders with that over the years. But with Livy bringing a few players in, if they can get those signings right, they've got a few in already. It sounds like there might be some more coming. That could be pretty important over the course of the next few months.
Absolutely, I think it's well documented. January is a really tough month for teams to bring in quality players. You're obviously looking in the loan market, and you're looking to try and pick up somebody here or there that's going to come in, but they've obviously got to be ready to hit the ground running as well, which is not always the case, because these players have generally been sitting on the sidelines for where they are. That's why they're not then moving. So it's tough. We've brought in a striker in Jake Young from Stevenage. Hopefully he might feature tonight, because our biggest problem is lack of goals. We're the lowest scorers in the league. We've actually scored the same number of goals at Hampden this season as we have at St Mirren Park in the league. So that tells you where our season is. It's just ridiculous. Kilmarnock's last win was against St Mirren, and Livingston were going into tonight with Livingston in the back of the biggest winless running disaster in the world. So every St Mirren fan is thinking, oh no, please no. But I really like what Callum said, that we're not going to get involved. I hope we're not going to get involved. I'll be there tonight with my fingers crossed that we get the 3 points. That I think that would put Livingston to bed anyway, and obviously pushes that a little bit further away from Kelly. I think Kelly, with the new manager bounce, I think McCann will be a decent appointment. I think he'll be a better appointment than people were giving him credit for. And I think Kelly will probably push on. And I would also share what Stuart said. I think Livingston have been better than the results suggest, and they're due a turn. So just hope that luck doesn't change tonight.
In the signings you mentioned, Stuart, Davy Martindale's brought in and is looking at. You might look at it and say, well, the situation that Livingston are in, you don't want to be spending too much money because you look like you might be going down to the Championship. But what he's doing, looks like they've not given up the ghost here. They're wanting to try and tool up and stay in the Premiership.
Yeah, I think that comes from the new chairman, who's been a breath of fresh air, really. He's really positive, so clearly he's not been ground down by Scottish football yet, so give him another season and let's see how his enthusiasm is. But we brought in players, but they've done a lot of things off the park. Now we've got a new park, for instance, or a new pitch, and we're doing loads of nice improvements to the stadium and to the infrastructure of the team. We've got an app that Davy's developed that can sign players. So instead of him watching YouTube for players, we're actually getting some data coming in, but I don't think Jamestown are losing sleep yet. We've got a good infrastructure there, and I think that's the positivity of the chairman, and that belief has got to come to the players. And I think, just like Div, I think we've scored as many goals at Hampden as at Almonville. We haven't even been to Hampden yet.
It's all a sea of positivity on here this morning, isn't it? Callum, I hate to bring this up. I spoke to the boys about their Scottish Cup tie at the weekend. Rugby Park seemed maybe not the best place to be in the world towards the end of that game, and on the full-time whistle we were on the radio and I heard the boos thundering through. The nature of the last goal that you conceded for Dundee to win, I mean, that maybe kind of summed things up for Killie at the moment, didn't it?
Absolutely did. It's bad days for me when Sunderland was a better place to be than Rugby Park on Saturday. I wasn't present there. I was doing watching an English Premier League team for my sins there, so forgive me. And
probably a good decision, to be fair.
I absolutely was. So it's but the only home game I've missed all season. But by all accounts, with the person that I co-host the podcast with, he was keeping me up to date and just saying it was really as bad as he's seen. Dundee were streets ahead of Kilmarnock, and that was one of the teams that we thought, right, well, if we can win that psychologically, we can maybe reel them back in, and that they've beat us twice now in the last 2 weeks. We've beaten us at the end of December there as well. But to get back to the goal, just completely calamitous, and again, one of these things that from the outside looking in just adds up with a team that's really struggling, and when you look back at the end of the season, all the warning signs were there for me. It starts with the Stuart Kettlewell appointment in the summer. The other week there when we had the altercation with the fan and the player, again in the Neil McCann appointment, and that's no disrespect to McCann himself, just the manner in which it was carried out and how long it took to go for a guy that they took the job 3 hours after Kettlewell was sacked, never mind 3 weeks. To then the goal at the weekend, it just looks like a team that's down and out, and I'm sincerely hoping that I'm really wrong with that. But when I was on here in the summer, they asked me for my prediction where Kilmarnock would finish, and I said 9th, 8th, and then I get told I was far too pessimistic and what I would give for that finish just now, and I just unfortunately don't see us escaping those bottom 2 places.
Yeah, and the goalkeeping situation, Callum's been a problem all season, and not the best start for your new keeper. Listen, there's probably blame to go around between him and Robbie Dees, but that's been an issue, isn't it? The chopping and changing in goal, and injuries have played a part in that as well, of course.
I think without a doubt, because everything's contextual and circumstantial as well. And the beginning of this run, we were suffered with so many injuries that we're still not there. But the main one, as you've said, is the goalkeeper, Max Stryek, and he seemed to, and that's somebody obviously Stuart will know very well, but he instilled a bit of confidence in the back line. Again, we weren't the world beaters, to be fair, because Devil would have seen himself in the penalty shootout with Kilmarnock and St Mirren back in the quarterfinals of the League Cup, and he didn't cover himself in glory that night either. But again, he brought a bit of confidence to the defence, and if you're going for inexperienced goalkeeper to inexperienced goalkeeper, to then bringing in Roos, who I think had a half decent pedigree, but a few of the Aberdeen fans said that he had an error in him, or could be a bit calamitous, and we certainly saw that on Saturday. But again, it doesn't help the defence when they don't know who's playing behind them week to week. And it was one of the telltale signs the last time Kilmarnock went down, and our 2 goalkeepers were Danny Rogers and Colin Doyle, and that was enough to relegate us. And unfortunately, that could be the Achilles heel again this season.
Yeah, injuries have been a big problem for Killie. Div, similarly at St Mirren, Stevie Robinson's known to had his troubles to seek on the injury front this season, has he?
Yeah, we've been up and down with it, but at the moment we're missing, obviously, Bacchus and Ayunga from the team that won the Cup. It is only 2 players, but it's 2 big players, and then Mark O'Hara's obviously a big loss in the middle of the pitch as well. So that's meant Alex Gogic has moved into the middle, which in turn has weakened the defence. So it's kind of a bit of a chain reaction when it comes to St Mirren. But, you know, we've got a small squad. Robbo's always kind of carried a fairly tight squad. His views definitely like quality over quantity, but that comes back to bite you a bit when you then get a run of injuries, and it's part and parcel of the game. Thankfully, you know, against Falkirk recently, we had Shamal George go off, we had Killian Phillips go off to join all of those players. But Shamal being back, you know, with touching goalkeepers there, I think, you know, Stuart will, again, he'll know Shamal George really well, but he's a massive part of our hopes in terms of getting out of the nonsense that we're in and improving our results, because he's been excellent. He's been absolutely superb, and I really hope we can get a permanent deal for him in the summer.
And what did you make, Div, of obviously on this little run here? Stevie Robinson's been Well, he's been quite clear. We need to accept the fact we're in a relegation battle. If any of our players are, not aware of that, we need to confront that and deal with it, because, as you said, the League Cup success was brilliant, but we need to get back down to earth and back to reality and realise the situation we're in. But he's went in quite strongly on his players in recent weeks. But we were chatting to the guys on the radio on Saturday, and they were sort of saying, well, he has been strong, maybe stronger than you would expect, but Stevie Robinson knows these players so well, and he's earned the trust of them, and he's earned that right to go in strong when he feels it's necessary. What have you made of that?
I think he was right, to be honest. I think, everybody knows we are, when we play, we're a good side. I think, if anything, we're probably just that little bit predictable. I think everybody knows how we want to set up and how we want to play, so we don't really want the ball, which obviously, when you're playing the better teams, that's fine, that works. But then when you're playing teams, I think the league is now pretty much well defined in the two halves of six, to be honest. When you're playing the teams in the bottom six, and I'm including Dundee United and Aberdeen in this as well, those teams don't really want the ball at the moment either, so nobody wants it. So we want to sit in and hit on the break. And I think Robbo's obviously got unbelievable amount of credit in the bank. I'd be building a statue at the man outside the stadium. I think our recent run of games, we've had 4 defeats in a row. 3 of those games were away against teams in the top 4, so that's got to be taken in context. But I think what most St Mirren fans would say the most disappointing thing in those 4 was the actual performance. It wasn't losing. We were quite good at Ibrox, to be fair, but then the performances at Fir Park, home to Falkirk, they were absolutely desperate. And then the Hearts one, again, you're going to Tynecastle kind of expecting to lose, to be honest, this season. But the way that game unfolded was tragic to watch. Against 10 men, we just didn't have a clue what to do. Didn't seem to have any creativity to break them down. And again, that's part and parcel of where we're at the moment, where we're not creating much. We don't look like a team that's going to score lots of goals right now, and that's disappointing. So again, hopefully, Young coming in will help. And I think we did earn quite a lot of money out of the cup win, so hopefully the board will release some of that, and we might see Rob will bring 1 or 2 more in. And I also wouldn't believe anything Stephen Robinson says to the press about how many players we're going to bring in or who's injured. I just don't believe anything that he says ever.
He's a canny old operator, isn't he? Well, Stuart, Div saying there that, despite the tough run, Stevie Robinson, he's held in such high regard by the St Mirren fans that there's a good bit of trust and faith that he'll navigate the team away from this. What's the Livingston fans' feelings with regards to Davy Martindale? He's been there such a long time, and we know in modern football a lot of times the first thing the fans think to solve all your problems is change the manager. But Davy's so in with the bricks there at Livingston, having been there such a long time. What's the Livy feelings about Davy at the moment?
I think Davy's in with the bricks because they probably put the bricks there and built it. It's really split at the moment. I would even say as much as 50-50. There's a real vocal element of Livy fans want Davy away. They think he's unsackable because he's in with the bricks. He does everything. He's been there. And it's the kind of silent majority, maybe slight majority, that aren't really saying much, which is quite telling that nobody's really coming out in support of Davy. Myself, I think he's the guy for the rest of the season and see what happens, because a freshness might change things. But Davy's more than earned the right to see us through the season and maybe even next season. He's our most successful ever manager. I think his experience in a dogfight is essential, what we're going through just now. I think tactically he's smarter than people give him credit for, and I think he's a good motivator as well, because some of our players, they're no world beaters, but we can get decent performances out of them. So Davy's the man for me just now, but I can see it turning if we don't win even tonight.
Well, let's talk about Kelly in that respect as well. Callum, you mentioned earlier that the appointment of Neil McCann, mixed response to that is probably putting it kindly, but you've seen a couple of games now. The fans have had a look at what he's trying to do. It's still early days to get his ideas across, but he doesn't have a lot of time to try and turn this around. What are the feelings about Neil and Billy Dodds and their ability to maybe try and turn things round between now and the end of the season?
Well, at this moment in time, the support are behind them, because they realise the job that they've got, and it's not their fault that Kilmarnock are in this position. I think you've seen a contrast with the way that McCann tried to play at Dundee. I think that it was very expansive in open football, but he said that to himself that was to his own cost at that moment in time, that he was maybe a bit too stubborn to change his way. I think he's looked at the squad and looked at the reality of the situation that we're in, and realised that there's no way that he's capable of doing that at this moment in time with the group of players that are there. So we've just got to try and go back to basics the best we can. With Livy, again, I think that they were probably the better team over the game at Almonville 2 weeks ago. But with that, you've got to see that as a great point. The fact that we're able to come back when we could have easily been dead and buried, and it gave you a bit of hope. But again, the Dundee game at the weekend is got folk really concerned. And the only saving grace is that it had no effect on our league position whatsoever. And I suppose the focus now is primarily on the league. Not that we would have ventured very far in the cup anyway. But I think it's one of those, it's all dependent on what players that McCann's able to bring in. You're hoping that there's talk of Finlay Curtis coming in for Rangers, and whether that will be a goal this week or maybe into next week, we don't know. But we badly need players in the building, and particularly wingers and somebody in the final third to give us to give us a bit of hope and a bit of spark. But equally, we're sorely lacking. You mentioned yourself, Andy, earlier about the players that left. We've just not replaced the experience there. Even at the centre half, you've Joe Wright and Stuart Finlay. And I'm not saying that you're able to replace the exact quality of these guys, but you can try and get somebody in the building that's played the same amount of games as them. And that's why you've seen the tail off of the likes of Lewis Mayo and Robbie Dees, who have been great players for Kilmarnock over the last few years, particularly Lewis Mayo. But we just need this experience in the spine of the team, and that's something that we're sorely missing. So even though I do think that the squad have underperformed and it's not got a lot of people excited, I think that at times we're maybe only a couple of really good players off of bringing everybody up 10-15% at our level here, and we need everything we can get. So we'll see how the next 10-11 days pans out, and whether Kilmarnock are in a better place at the end of the window.
You're 11th place in the table just now. Would you take that right now and take your chances in the playoffs at the end of the season?
Genuinely, aye, and I know that's honestly one of the over the years there's many depressing things that I've said in a Kilmarnock podcast, but that's definitely up there. I think that's our best hope, and unfortunately that will mean that Stuart's Livy's relegated. So I'm sorry about that, mate, but that's our best hope.
Well, Stuart, right a reply. Do you think Livy can get themselves out of trouble this season?
I think we can. It is between us and Kelly in that dogfight. I think St Mirren will escape. They've got enough about them. The fact that I've started looking at the Championship League table tells you that I think we're going to play off. Although I think it'd be quite tough this year, but I do fancy Kelly's chances next season for coming back up, because I think it's about us. And I'm hopeful and I'm optimistic that we'll pull through.
Well, Div, you must be feeling a bit more positive about the buddies after this chat. Both these boys saying they think that St Mirren will be all right.
It's absolutely glorious to hear. I'm absolutely loving it. I'm looking forward to going to Livy's and thumping them tonight now.
Well, you confident? Yeah, tonight, Div, the teams had a go at each other on Saturday, and they're going to do it all over again. You think Saints will be all right?
I think it'll be a draw again, or one goal either way. It's going to be really tight, no doubt about that. Hopefully we'll take a decent support through. It's a big game for us. It's three big, as Stuart said, defining points, I think, in the season. If we get the 3 points tonight, we can push on, get out of trouble, and then just concentrate on the cup double.
Well, Stuart, what's your prediction finally? Can Livy finally get that victory they've been waiting so long for tonight?
I'm in that supporter cycle where you come away from a game defeated, and then 24 hours later you're absolutely buzzing for a game and you're full of optimism. And if we get these 3 points tonight, which I think we will, we're breathing down Kilmarnock's necks, and I think this game means more to us, so I think we'll do it.
There we go. A positive note to end on. Gents, it's been a real pleasure to talk to you this morning, and thanks to you for listening. Remember, we're here with new episodes of the Scottish Football Podcast bright and early every day. So to make sure you don't miss out, subscribe on BBC Sounds and have push notifications turned on your phone. But for now, from Div, from Callum, from Stuart and from me, thanks for listening.
For everything you need to know about your team this season, download the BBC Sport app. All the latest news, goal updates, stats and scores, and insight and analysis. Just select your club to get the biggest stories and best content at your fingertips. What a result. Download the BBC Sport app for everything you need to know about your team this season.